Welcome to day 7 of my autumn themed card series. Today I'm working on Ivory Linen Effect cardstock and I'm using Distress ink to sponge around this using a piece of Ranger Cut and Dry foam. The colour here is Vintage Photo. This is a maple leaf stamp by Stampede and I'm going to add colour to this using distress markers. I have Rusty Hinge, Spice Marmalade, peeled paint and fired brick, and I'm applying the inks just randomly over the leaf, and then once I've done this I'm going to spritz the leaf with some water before applying the stamp to the card, and I will stamp first, second and third generation. So the first stamp tends to be quite watery, and then by the third stamp you get a little bit more definition, and once it dries you get a very soft watercolour look. And I repeat this process around the whole border of the card and then also add a couple of stamps to the centre. Next I'm taking a second stamp and I'm using this with Archival ink in Potting Soil. This particular stamp is by Stampin' Up, and I'm using this stamping lightly over the background so that I get partial images. Once my background is complete, I'm working on a focal image. I'm going back to the same stamps I've used previously. This time I'm taking the text stamp by Stampin' Up and using this with VersaFine ink in Onyx Black. And then I take the leaf stamp by Stampede. Again, I use this with distress markers, but I do not add water this time. To fill in some of the spaces on the outside edge, I'm using my Stampin' Up Tiny Splatter stamp, and I also add some of this to the card background so that the two match each other. And then I use the same VersaFine ink direct to paper around the edge of both the background and the focal image. Next, I'm layering my card onto some linen cardstock, and this is in Ivory, and then I take a second layer and layer both the card and the focal image onto some brown basil cardstock. And now it's time to attach my focal image to the front of the card, and I'm using Sellotape brand double-sided tape, just as I did to attach all of the layers. My card base, as usual, is 325 GSM smooth white cardstock, and the back has been stamped with my Judekin stamp. You'll find details of which in the video description. Now it's time to work on the insert, and for this I've chosen a Spellbinders die, and I'm going to sponge around the edge with Vintage Photo Distress ink using a piece of Ranger Cut and Dry foam in the same manner that I did with the front of the card. To decorate the insert, I've chosen the maple leaf design by Rubber Stampede that was used on the front, but this time I'm just stamping it in VersaFine Onyx Black and adding a few tiny splatters in the same black ink. And I decided to leave this particular insert blank rather than stamping the sentiment as I usually do. That is the end of today's project and the end of the series. I hope you enjoyed watching. As usual, there is a link to the full product list in the video description as well as my social media sites.